I'm going to have to stop myself from scratching my nose because that's a nervous habit.
My nervous tick is scratching my nose.
And mine was going bananas about 5 minutes ago.
Now my nose is starting to itch. Stop.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's like a yawn. I shouldn't have even said the word. Oh, no. Welcome to the first annual Indie Hybrid Author Panel. I'm your moderator, Rivy Israel, and of course, we have the owner of the channel, our hostess, and my mother, Terri Gillespie. Hi, Terri.
Hi.
As moderator, I'll also keep time to ensure everyone is able to contribute. Let me introduce our panelists. First up, we have Pam Halter. Pam was a homeschooling mom for 9 years, has been a children's book author since 1995, and a freelance children's book editor since 2006, and was the children's book editor for Fruit Bearer Publishing until January 2023, when the publishing house closed. She's the author of Fairy Eater, a young adult fantasy novel published by Love to Read, Love to Write Publishing, and Willoughby and Friends, a picture book series about friendship featuring Willoughby, who's a dragon. Pam has short stories in several anthologies, the newest in Don't Go in the Water, Ye Old Dragon Books, which released on October 15th. Pam lives in southern New Jersey with her husband, Daryl, special needs adult daughter, Anna, and 4 cats, who you might see. When she's not writing, Pam enjoys reading, quilting, gardening, cooking, playing piano, Bible study, and walking long country roads where she discovers fairy homes, emerging dragons, and tree-eating gnomes. Hi, Pam.
Hi.
All right, next up, we have Dennis Conrad.
Hello. Glad to be here.
Great to have you. Dennis is a former coin collector for over 50 years. Dennis combines his love for the Bible, children's literature, and sharing stories about the history behind coins. Dennis retired as a professor of speech communications from Barstow Community College. He and his wife served as English and public speaking teachers overseas. His first book in the God We Trust series is The 2-Cent Piece, which is now on audiobook and is the #1 new release on Audible in military and wars historical fiction for children. His second book, Marcus and the Emperor's Coin, has just been published. Hi, Dennis.
Wow, it's so exciting to be here with everybody. I'm really looking forward to our time together.
Next up, we have Debbi Malone. Debbi has a degree in human services and worked in the field for several years before starting her career. Her first novel, Death in Dahlonega, was a finalist in the American Christian Fiction Writers Category 5 Writing Contest. Deborah was nominated for the 2012 and 2013 Georgia Novelist Author of the Year. Deborah won Georgia Author of the Year in 2018 for Blooming in Broken Places for inspirational works. The companion Bible study, Bloom Where You Are, won second place in the prestigious Selah Awards Bible study category. She is a member of the Georgia Writers Association, Atlanta Writers, American Christian Fiction Writers, and Advanced Writers and Speakers Association. She lives in North Georgia with her husband, Travis. Hi, Debbi.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Great to have you. And last but not least, we have our hostess, Terri Gillespie. Terri is an award-winning author, reviewer, blogger, YouTube personality, and speaker. Terri loves writing stories and devotionals that speak of the power of the Father's redemptive love and healing. She has written 6 books, including Really Bad Hair Day, winner of the 2022 Golden Scroll for Contemporary Fiction Novel of the Year. Hi, Terri.
Hi.
It's great to have you all. By the way, viewers, we have all the authors' websites in the description below, so you can check out what they're currently working on and how to contact them. Make sure to sign up for the newsletters. All right, Pam, we'll start things off with you.
Alrighty.
Quickly, can you tell us a little bit more about your writing background?
Well, first two picture books that were picked up was before I really knew nothing. I didn't know anything about writing. So I'd gone to my first writers conference, learned I don't know anything about writing. But I met Marlene Bagnall, who's is the director at Greater Philadelphia and a Colorado Christian Writers Conference, and she helped me with my proposal and all. And so Concordia Publishing House picked up Beatrice, the Adventures of Beatrice picture books. They're planning to do 2 a year, and a new editor came. My old one left, new editor came, and sent everybody's stuff back. So I just continued to learn about the craft, attend conferences. I went to Marlene's monthly meeting, did fellowship critiques, everything I could about writing, and submitted and got lots of rejections and submitted and rejected, and because that's what we do. And it wasn't until I got little things picked up. Daily devotions in the secret place. I'm in 3 Cup of Comfort books. I wrote up something for Terry's Making Eye Contact with God. I'm in Marlene's For Better For Worse, for devotional for married couples based on the vows.
Awesome.
That kind of thing that keeps you going. When you write short stuff and so on, it keeps you going. And it wasn't until I had an agent and we tried to sell Willoughby and nobody wanted him. And we tried for a while, and my best friend is a professional illustrator. So I said, been in the business since 1998. I think we can do Willoughby ourselves. So Candy Abbott and I were in the same writers group, and I had been her children's book editor for a while. And so, of course, I wanted to go through her because she puts out excellent stuff. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
And so 2017, Willoughby and the Terribly Itchy Itch came out.
Did you originally start as traditional, or like as far as publishing?
Yes. The 2 Beatrice, The Adventures of Beatrice, that's a Concordia Publishing House.
Yeah, that is I'm very familiar with them. Yeah.
So Willoughby is actually the only thing I've indie published. Everything else has been so.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So
there's 3 Willoughby books out, and there's also a coloring book.
That's awesome.
That's was a lot of fun
kids,
to work on.
Good for kids and adults, I would imagine.
Well, it was a lot of fun to work on. Candy had never done a coloring book before, so I went to her house and spent the weekend, and we worked on it all weekend. It was a lot of fun.
That's so neat.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Yeah. Dennis, how about you? How was your experience with writing?
Fortunately, many conferences attended in the early or late 1990s and then into the 2000s. And I happened to have an experience in 2017 when I was at a house. I was about to sell it, and I had retired, and I went out in the backyard and I'd cut down a large pine tree, and I had my palms up, and I asked the Lord, what is next? And I heard him say, write for me. And that started a whole process in retirement here of actually affiliating with an agent, Sharon Norris Elliott. About 8 months later, I ended up getting a contract with Elk Lake Publishing. And just so you know, Elk Lake is a traditional publisher that partners with you in a non-traditional way. And so what is interesting then is the book first came out a year ago. It's called The 2 Cent Piece. And as you mentioned, The 2 cent piece is now an Audible book, a book on
Yes.
Audible, and it is doing well. So I'm very excited about that. And that's my
Wonderful.
writing journey.
Yay. That is awesome. Debbie, how has your writing journey been?
Interesting.
Well, that's
Lots of-
good.
Lots of ups and downs. I have a
Mhm.
cute story about how I began writing. I've always loved reading, and I think it morphed into writing. But my now husband and I had just started dating. This was many years ago. And we had gone to a restaurant, and it was a beautiful historic building. And we have a magazine here in Georgia called Georgia Backroads, which is a historical magazine. And I said, oh, Travis is an architect. And I said, oh, somebody needs to write an article for Georgia Backroads. And he looked at me and said, well, why don't you? I said, well, okay, I will. So I did some research about what I needed to do and wrote the article. And you had to go interview the people and take lots of pictures and all that kind of stuff for the magazine. So the article had been accepted, and I had to go back and take some more pictures of the owner. So when I went back, the restaurant was empty. When I went in, there was a man sitting there with, kind of had his head in his hands. And I said, well, I need to see Miss So-and-so. I need to get some more pictures of her. He says, oh, I'm sorry. He said, that's my wife, but she ran off with the cook over the weekend. And at first I thought he was kidding, but she actually did run off with the cook. And so I said, probably having a background in human services, I sat there for a couple hours and listened to him. And probably I kind of understand why she might have run off with the cook. But anyway, needless to say, the article did not get published, but I didn't give up. I kept writing. The bug had bitten, and I did get my next article published, and I wrote for them for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And my first novel was published in 2011. I started off with cozy mysteries, fiction. And like Pam, I went to every conference. I did everything I could to try to learn to write, because it's not like you just sit down and write. There's rules to write, and you have to learn those rules. And so I did a lot of that. And then in 2017, I switched over to nonfiction. And so I've been writing nonfiction since then. So that's pretty much my writing career.
Yeah. Did you originally start out with traditional publishing?
Yes, I did. I've had the same publisher for many years, and he's a small publisher, but he was traditional. And he did a stupendous job. And about a year ago, he told me that he was going to not do the small publishing anymore and was going to do more formatting. And he did help me with my last book. And he transferred all my books to Ingram Sparks. So that's where I am now. So it's a whole new ball game for me. Fortunately, it was smooth because he helped me. And I have another book that he has, and I'm waiting to see, what he's going to offer me, if he's going to, publish it, or if he's just going to charge me, to format it and get it ready for publishing. So.
Okay. And Terri, what about you? How's your writing journey been?
Well, my writing journey is very similar to Pam's and Debbie's. My first book was nonfiction. It was a women's devotional, and that was 15 years ago, and it's still actually out. I still actually get royalty checks for it after 15 years. So Pam was one of the contributors to that devotional. So Pam, that means we've known each other for over 15 years. Wow.
Yes. but we still look good. We don't look old. We're good.
Absolutely.
No, Yeah. So, so, so my journey, because I had a very specific type of genre, I wanted to write stories with messianic characters, and the at that time, and still probably now, Christian publishers weren't interested in messianic Jewish contemporary um, characters. So I had an agent, and he sent it everywhere, got the most wonderful rejection letters. Great story, love the writing, but it's not for us. So after a while, it was, I think I need to self publish this. So that began the Hair Mavens trilogy. And of course, the third book won a Contemporary Novel of the Year for the Golden Scroll in 2022. So, but one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about too is that we're talking about indie publishing, and we're also talking about hybrid. And when I read a couple of articles on the definition of hybrid, and believe it or not, there are a lot of different definitions of hybrid, but hybrid actually is, generally speaking, usually a very small press, like Elk Lake, Debbi, like yours, Fruit Bears, and you get a royalty check, and you don't have to pay for the publishing costs, the printing costs, editing, and most times the cover, that's all included. But then they don't really have a marketing machine. They don't really have marketing in place. It's
For promotion and all that.
Exactly. It's
Gotcha.
really up to the author to do that. And that's more like indie publishing, where the whole responsibility of marketing is on your shoulders. So yes.
In traditional publishing, most of the marketing falls on your shoulders too.
Oh,
Just the way it is now.
wow.
Well, there are, and I agree to a certain extent. They still want us to do a certain amount of marketing, but they have, like Ingram Sparks, they have certain systems in place to be able to go to the brick and mortar, and it's very difficult for indie publishers to do that. And then for small houses, if they use the Kindle Direct publishing, they have the same difficulty in getting into brick and mortar. So yeah, so it like I said, it's complicated. But we're going to talk about all of those pros and cons.
Yes. All right. Anyone else would like to add to that while we're on this topic? Okay. All right. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of the publishing process. Dennis, what platforms do you use for creating or formatting or even producing your books, like Vellum or Scrivener?
Well, fortunately, I've been able to work in Word for years, and I did that as a teacher and what have you. And the good thing is that Word works really well, but I have something that I do additionally, and that is to create a chart in Word. And then I actually am able to include the characters. I'm able to include the dialogue. I'm able to include the breakdown of the scenes. And so I can create a whole format to look at the overview of the book and do that quickly and efficiently. And because my focus is children's picture books, I'm able to have a quick view and overview of everything that I do fast and efficiently.
That's pretty clever. That's actually when yeah, I can see that. It just all in one place. You can see it all together. That's great. Debbie, do you have any different ways when you are creating?
I've always used Word too. I have tried Scrivener and other things, and Scrivener, to be honest, has a huge learning curve.
Oh,
And I've never been able to actually make myself spend that much time to get to know it. But I love Word and I've used Word, but I also use Microsoft OneNote, which is a virtual notebook. And you can make chapters and then you can make pages, and it's just, it looks like a notebook. And so that's where I've kept all my characters, my settings, my timelines, to keep everything straight. And I've always loved OneNote. And I don't think a lot of people know about it.
Yeah, I know Notepad. I don't know about OneNote. I might have to check that out. Pam, what about you? Do you know on Scrivener for you? Seems like the consensus on Scrivener is Scrivener. You got some work to do. Okay.
It's computers are a hot mess anyway, and technology and I don't play well together. So there's that. But I use Word, and I just I make a folder. And then I have all my files for each character, the timeline, my very loose outline if I'm doing something longer, like I'm working on the prequel to Fairy Eater right now. And I've learned that when you're doing a big book, you got to have a timeline or you get all messed up. And so that's what each individual character has their own file. Any research that I do, and I have a file for general notes. And so I do a lot of back and forth. It's probably an easier way to do it, but right now that's what works for me.
Yeah, and it's comfortable for you.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Yeah. So Terri, what about you? Everybody's using Word.
Have
you used Vellum or tried Scrivener?
No. As soon as I saw it, it was like, get behind me. So, yeah. And I have friends that love it, that absolutely love it, but, no.
What's the problem with it? Like,
it's just
too complicated.
It's a huge learning curve. And, I do use Excel. I will plot out a book with Excel. So, because you can move the rows, you can move columns. So if you want to move one scene to another scene, all you have to do is just cut and insert. So I do that. The other thing is because I am a visual and tactile learner, I have a folder and I will put all of my different characters, and they have I'll have the color of their eyes, their hair color, and how they relate to the protagonist. And that's really helpful because rather than trying to go through Scrivener and figure out what eye color a certain character has, all I have to do is just pull this out and say, oh yeah, they have blue eyes. So
yeah. So that's kind of like a vision board, which is another great idea.
Very good. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Let's see. So anyone, feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to answer the next question. Does anyone have a budget for, say, hired out costs? Dennis, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, for example, when I was committed to 7 books, I realized that, for example, the production of the audiobooks was going to be on my shoulders. And I was able to go ahead and do that very efficiently because I found some editors. Elk Lake was able to connect me with individuals that were able to provide auditions, then went through the process. My latest book, I happen to have come in contact with James L. Rubart, who's a Christie Hall of Fame author, and he has agreed to do the audiobook on Marcus and the Emperor's Coin, and it will be out coming up before this airs. So I'm very excited about that.
The end of October. That's awesome.
Congratulations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you found a way to cut costs in your budget, or if there's any tips you can share to anyone?
Well, I tell you, I know that I have expenses, and I'm looking at them as an investment in the future because I have a webmaster, I have a marketing coach, and I have a virtual assistant. And so I've been able to put together quite a team. And in addition to the Elk Lake editor and individuals that I'm working with there, the illustrator, and all of that together really has provided an opportunity for me to work well and efficiently. And so those costs are really looked at as an investment in the future.
Necessary. Yes.
Right.
I
And I'll
agree.
just say too, the purpose of my writing is actually to have parents and grandparents have the salvation conversation with the next generation. And so that is possible to really open an opportunity for sharing the gospel.
Awesome. Pam, you have something to add?
I'm as a freelance editor of children's books. I talk to most of my clients about money because the biggest expense, if you're going to self-publish, indie publish a picture book, are illustrations.
Yes.
And the cost of the printing, because color ink, paper, all that, it's very expensive.
A lot more expensive. Yes.
And you don't want to skimp on your illustrations because illustrations can make or break your sales. And so I tell people to do a lot of research, see what styles they like, what's out there, and then start looking into the cost of it. And if it's really expensive, they don't have it, but they want it, start saving your money. It's worth waiting.
Yeah.
My best friend, Kim Spinagle, is a professional illustrator, and she has a nice article on her website for authors who are looking for an illustrator with a lot
Wonderful.
of advice. And on her website is picturekitchenstudio.com.
Perfect.
And
Wonderful.
yeah, she's worth the money that you put out for her. So.
Yeah. So saving is a very good tip. Yes. Terri, what would you like to add?
Kim is amazing. And in fact, we knew that in A Penny Saved, my co-writer and I, we knew we wanted to have a professional illustrator. And when I talked to Kim has a very specific niche for her types of illustrations. And I needed something edgy. So we had to look for a different illustrator. And my friend and I, we'd had to pay for that illustrator. So with my first book with Elk Lake, the cover, there was no charge for that. It was part of that. But for the middle grade fantasy, we had to pay for it. So Pam is right, because that's what readers see. They see that cover. Yeah,
this is the cover. This one, First Place, and Purple Dragonfly, which is Story Monsters Inc. You see that, but Kim can be edgy because this is what she came up with for Fairy Eater. When we thought we might self-publish it, and this is the fairies in the witch's window, Tismet, where she catches them and she hangs them, and Love to Read, Love to Write Publishing loved it and used it, on the cover. So, but Terry's right. Kim does have a specific, her heart's in children's picture books and all, and you can tell, like most artists, you can tell by looking at her characters that she, I can look at different pieces of artwork and I can pick out Kim's right away.
Yeah.
That's great. Debbie, do you want to add anything to as far as budgeting and cutting costs or?
Well, while they were talking about the illustrations, I don't have to be concerned with illustrations, but and I know all the authors will agree with me. I cannot emphasize enough not to skimp on editing, and don't think that you can edit your own work, because you can't. And even the best editors can't edit their own work. It's just too hard to do. You're too close to
Too
it.
biased.
But it's I think like Pam said, if you have to save your money to get an editor, do that, because people will know when it comes out. They'll know whether you had an editor. I can have, sometimes I have 3 editors, and mistakes still get through. You know, it's tough. So it's definitely worth the money invested.
Yes.
Can I add?
Sure.
On saving money, save your money to go to a writer's conference at least one a year. There's always something to learn, for one thing, but you need the networking and the fellowship. Most of our stuff, when we sit and we write, we're by ourselves. And I'm one of those weird extroverted writers where COVID shut down about killed me, because I couldn't see people, and it was so awful. And I attend 1 or 2, sometimes 3 in a year, depending on if I'm on faculty. That helps because you don't have to pay for it. If you can get scholarships. I attended Marlene's conferences for years by volunteering before and after and during the conference. And she, when we did all the work we were doing, she put that toward our conference fee. You can look for grants. There's a lot of ways to save money. I'm with having a special needs child. Even when she was in school, I was on call all the time because we were lots in the emergency room from seizures and all. And so I wouldn't have been able to hold down a regular job anyway. But I clean houses, as a tell, that people would tell Marlene, oh, I can't afford it. I need a full scholarship. And Marlene would say, I got a friend who cleans other people's toilets so she can come to the conference.
Yeah.
There are ways you can figure stuff out to be able to. So editing, illustrations, super, super important. Marketing, you're going to need book swag, especially for kids, bookmarks. I got stickers, I've got tattoos. And for the coloring book, I've got crayons, I've got glow sticks, and all kinds of cool little book swag. It all costs money. So you have to have that, and then get to at least 1 conference a year.
Yeah, that's a great advice right there. I know Terri has met many people at conferences and has made some really solid connections. Yeah. And it's just good to be around people that are doing the same thing you are too. So on that same journey. Yes, Debbie.
Just before we get off on this subject, I just wanted to, it sounds very discouraging that you've got to have a lot of money. But I didn't start off with a lot of money. And a lot of the conferences I went to were close to me, and they were smaller conferences. And, you can get just as much out of them as you can some of the conferences you have to pay thousands of dollars for. You don't have to do that. Yes, those are great conferences, but there are smaller ones to start off with.
Yeah.
And my marketing, I know we're going to get into marketing, but I did most of my own marketing, face to face. And there are ways to do that too. I would teach at conferences, or I got to where I would speak and do keynote speeches. And when you do that, then you get your conference paid for. Wow. But all that did not happen overnight. I did many free things. I would drive 4 hours to do something free. you know, for several years. So it is a process. It is not an overnight thing. I think we've all been doing this for years. And so
Yeah.
we've gotten to that point now.
Yeah. And
But I don't want anybody to get discouraged. You know, don't get discouraged. Don't give up. It takes time.
Yeah. Terry, something else to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Debbi and Pam are both extroverts. And when you see them in action, when I've seen Debbi in action at book signings, and that woman can sell. She can sell. And that's one of the difficulties, because I'm very much an introvert. And especially where there are a lot of people milling about. So Debbi has challenged me to step out and introduce myself, and it is painful. It's actually just painful. And I go home and I put on my pajamas, and that's it. So. But I agree with Debbi, and I also agree with Pam that I think you need to be realistic. But there are ways, and I think maybe in the description section we can list some of the conferences, because Pam, you brought up a good point, and that is to try to attend conferences. So,
or you can even do one-day workshops here and there. Different places have those as well. But back to book signings, if you are struggling with that, an introverted person isn't necessarily a shy person, but if you are dealing with that too, is see if you can take one of like somebody like me with you. Because I love doing that stuff, you know, and I love helping people do that. And I think depending on what you're selling, children's books, am I right, Dennis? Children's books just lend themselves to be sold, and colors and stickers, and kids, come on over. Here's a free pencil, you know. And so find somebody, you know, that conferences and workshops help you meet other writers that if you're not in a group, a writer's group, critique or whatever, you can learn. And now that we've got Zoom, because there wasn't anything like this when we started, right?
Very true.
You can be in a group with anybody, anywhere, and still see faces, hear voices, ask questions, and do that. There's a lot out there to help people now than there ever was when we all first started.
Very true. Dennis, anything else to add? Or
I'll just say that fortunately, getting to know Marlene of the Greater Philly and Colorado Writers Conference, she was willing to write an endorsement for my new book, Marcus and the Emperor's Coin. Years ago, I met Mizu Andrews, who is a Christie Award-winning author, and she ended up also agreeing to write an endorsement. So and she's her book, Isaiah's Daughter, is amazing. So know that these connections sometimes last years, and you will have relationships. And if you're down, you can go and write them and say, hey, please pray for me. That follow-up is fantastic.
Yes. Thank you. That was great, Dennis. Mom, anything else?
One of the other things with like the American Christian fiction writers, they actually have chapters. And so,
like in different states, or
and sometimes in regions or towns. So the Northwest Georgia. Well, actually, I think we're north because we merged with another chapter. And so once a month, they'll have classes, they'll have fellowship, and it's all by Zoom. And then there's a I actually started the writer's retreat. So annually, they have a writer's retreat. Right now it's in a location that's gorgeous. But
which helps, I'm assuming, with the whole process, is having a beautiful place to be and experience. So
Yeah, a place where there aren't like bugs and rats. That was our first place. So
Oh boy.
that didn't
Well,
turn
that's a
out.
different type of writing,
That
I
didn't
suppose.
turn out. Yeah, that one didn't turn out very well. But the other one is just like palatial. So, um, but it's a way. It's another way if you cannot go to the national conferences and the bigger conferences, like Debbie said. There's sometimes chapter meetings that you can go to, and then they'll bring in um, different authors and teachers and things like that. So, and
Great.
Dennis, I can't believe you know Marlene. That's just so small world. Yeah, that's how Pam and I met.
Everybody
wow.
knows Marlene.
Yeah, everybody knows Marlene.
Well,
Yes.
not Debbie. Debbie's like, not me. No. Soon,
Fantastic
Debbie.
relationships. That's the key.
Yeah.
And they last for a lifetime.
Yes.
Yeah, and Marlene is good people. I got her to bring in Marty Getz to do praise and
Oh,
worship.
wow.
Yeah.
And I had seen Marty Getz 30 years ago at a conference. And it was, or 20 years ago, about the time of 9/11. And he was there and got to meet him. And obviously, this has been great to have a reunion with him and see the relationships that are developed because of his music ministry.
Yeah. Marty
I
and
think,
Jenny are amazing.
Yeah, we've gotten to meet them, correct?
Yeah.
At Messiah Conference and other.
Yeah. Yeah. And now he's singing with his daughter, Misha. And I knew Misha when she was like, yeah. So now she has 2 kids. So, yeah. So,
Another way that you can keep in touch is with other authors. If you can get in touch with other authors, and I have to tell the story of me and Terri.
Please do.
I saw where Terri was moving to my town, and I had heard her name. I didn't know her, but I thought, wow, this is amazing. I've got to meet this woman. You know, I've heard about her. And so I got in touch with her, and we met at Panera, I think, our first meeting. And
That sounds right.
we just hit it off. And Terri has been, I hope it's been mutual, but I know Terri has been an encouragement to me. And she helped me with my second nonfiction book. And if it hadn't been for her, I wouldn't have been able to do it, because she had already written a devotional, and she knew about that. And she really was a mentor to me. And I appreciate that. But that's always a fun story to tell.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's nice to hear.
And the thing with Debbie is when she contacted me, I was at the I give up stage. And when she contacted me, and she was so excited, and I thought, well, how do you even know me? And so it was truly a gift from the Lord, because I had given up. I had given up. So, yeah.
Oh. Well, it's hard to move on after that. I just want to stay there. It's a good place. But let's see. Oh, here we go. Has indie and hybrid publishing helped to meet your writing goals? And in what way have you met those goals, or maybe not met those goals? Dennis, we can start with you if you'd like.
Definitely, it's helped me reach my goals. And as I said, being able to allow people to get a copy of the book, here's the 2-cent piece. And
beautiful.
It's about the first coins with the words "In God We Trust," as I mentioned. And the whole idea of, again, I'll just say, meeting a goal, for example, of meeting with small children and doing beta reading and showing them the version and then the revised version, and saying, which do you like better? Oh, I like the revised version. And my little story about Marcus has him falling in a bush with some thorns. And so the little boy said, I fell in a stickery bush once, and so he used the word stickery, but it
Mhm.
was great to be able to know that he could relate. And then his mom and grandmother chimed in and said, "Oh yes, it took a while to get all the stickers out." So I'll just stop with that. Thank you.
Aw, thank you. Anyone else like to answer? Pam.
To piggyback on Dennis, if you're writing for anybody you're writing for, but especially children, hang out with them. You got to know them. And they're brilliant. I like words like stickery. Okay. You know, kids would use it in your writing. When I was at a library event in Delaware, they I got to read to the kids, you know, and like I ask them questions about Willoughby and what do you think Willoughby's favorite snack is? And I'm trying to be all, you know, clever, you know, and I was going for sweet potato fries because I think kids, one little girl goes, marshmallows. And I'm like,
That's
because
perfect.
because he can toast them with his dragon bar.
Mhm.
She's like, yeah, like so you have to hang out, you have to listen to them. How do they talk? What do they say? What holds their attention? Things like that. Whether you're indie publishing, hybrid publishing, or traditional, it doesn't matter. If you're writing, you have to know who you're writing for. I don't want to turn this into a teaching thing, but it helps you market. It helps you know what to do after your book comes out if you really know your audience.
Wonderful. Debbie. Oh, I saw Debbie's hand first. So,
I know. I think we're all excited.
yes.
We all have something to input, and that's really great. I mean, I'm sitting here learning things.
Awesome.
But as far as meeting goals, once again, this is could take years, could be a lifetime, and you don't know where your writing is going to take you. I started off with fiction and never dreamed that I would be doing nonfiction. And since everybody else is holding up their books,
Yes.
I have to hold up my first nonfiction book, which won Georgia Author of the Year in Inspiration. And I went from being scared to death to write nonfiction. I actually asked somebody to help me. And I got lots of replies, but the lady I chose, when I went to meet her, she said, well, you know, I really don't want to write anymore. And my heart just sank because, you know, I expected her to write it for me. And she said, but it's your story. You need to write it. And she said, I will mentor you. And she did. She mentored me through the whole thing. And she was right. I did have to write it. Nobody else could write my story. But like I said, going from being scared to death to write nonfiction to getting Georgia Author of the Year, you don't know where it's going to lead you. You know, God is amazing, and he can take you many places that you never thought that you would be able to go.
That's great, Debbie. Terri, what would you like to add?
Well, kind of pivoting off of what Pam was saying too, is that you know, I thought my niche was women's contemporary because I like edgy, you know, as edgy stories of people who are very flawed and their journeys. So of my co-author on A Penny Saved, she's a historical writer, and she decided that I needed to go with her to homeschool conferences. And I highly recommend, if you do write children's, no matter you know what the range is, highly recommend going to homeschool conferences. So we were at this homeschool conferences. She's selling books, and we're meeting all these young people. When we asked them, what genre do you like to read? And they said historical. So, you know, and I'm thinking, wow, these kids are smart. But anyway, so I looked at, you know, coming from an operations background, I said to Cynthia, Cynthia, you need to write children's books that are based on your historical novels. And she said, "Oh, I can't do that." And I said, "Oh, well, I think we could do it together." So I said, I'll help you, having never written one before. And so I started working with her, and then all of a sudden this character popped into my head, and it was Mason. And it was based on Rivy's son, my grandson. And so all of a sudden we had this middle grade fantasy mystery that we're working on the second book, and there'll be time travel, and there's going to be even more his history, but it's from the point of view of a former slave. And the contemporary character is an ancestor of the great 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 grandson of this former slave. So we never would have done that without talking to young people and seeing what they liked. And my devotional is probably still my best seller, but now A Penny Saved is now inching up to be close to what my sales in with the devotional, Making Eye Contact. So
Really?
I'll just add that fortunately I've read that book, and Terri, it's wonderful. It's exciting. My books are about coins, and I was excited to be able to enjoy that book, and didn't put it down. It was really fantastic. Thank you.
I may foresee a future collaboration with more coins involved. Who knows?
And can I add that, being we're
Sure.
talking about indie and hybrid and all, when you have characters like that, I don't want to jump too far into this, but that you're a white girl, you can't write about Black kids. That what prevents a lot of authors from getting their wonderful stories picked up traditionally, because I think a lot of houses may be unsure how to handle, that type of thing. So this is one instance where you really want to jump into indie or hybrid publishing, because you do know what you're talking about. It's the same thing with one of the things I was working on. I had a Filipino character in a story, and I got told, you can't write that. And I said, my niece and nephew are Filipino. My ex-sister-in-law's from the Philippines. I can write this because I know the culture. And so, yeah. Anyway, I just want to say this is an instance where, because a lot of authors wonder, should I hold out for traditional? Should I try traditional? And you can. Absolutely, you can. But with indie and hybrid publishing being so much better than it was, and if you do it right and you get your editing and you have good illustrations or a good cover design and all, there's no reason to wait for traditional publishing where that house is going to take 90% of the money coming in. You get very, very little from a traditional house.
Kind of pivoting off of that, if you are writing where the protagonist, you can have characters that may be different ethnicity. If you intend to have a protagonist that is of a different race, always have sensitivity readers. And
very important.
Rivy was my sensitivity reader, and then I had a couple of other people who are Black, who African American, who read it. And the other thing I wanted to say too is that Dennis's book, I read it too, and I endorsed the second book. And but what was so wonderful with Dennis is his books are about coins. Our book is about coins, but they're completely different stories, and they don't compete at all. They're just different stories and different developments. And Dennis's, his book is just as charming as it can be, and with great lessons. So yeah,
Amazing.
Thank you for that. And I'll just say, as this mutual admiration society continues, we're really at a point to realize that kids are interested in coins, and they're interested in coin collecting, and they're interested in learning about of the different kinds of ways to collect coins. And at the back matter of both of my books, I have information that can help work for homeschoolers. It works for teachers to be able to help with the transition to a junior coin collector. And even on my website at DennisConradAuthor.com, a person can go and sign up to get a monthly activity sheet about coins. And the first one is a crossword puzzle. And then I have a maze, and I also have a vocabulary builder, and I also have a coin search, so kids can get involved in that. So I'm really excited to share that with you all.
Can
And
adults go to your website and get that
Right.
too?
It's perfect for adults because they're the ones who are going to be sharing the salvation conversation with the next generation.
Well,
And if
actually,
you,
I was thinking I'm going to go visit. I'm going
Oh,
to go see
do that. Do
I know,
that.
it sounds
For personal
fun.
More
reasons.
crossword puzzles.
Oh, it'll be fun. I think you'll enjoy it. And it's all set up and ready to go. So just go ahead and help yourself there. Thanks.
cannot-
Anybody listening too.
And yeah, and y'all, this is good marketing.
Yep.
What he's doing is good marketing, whether he indie, hybrid, traditional publisher, doesn't matter. This kind of thing is good marketing. It's something else for if you're starting out on your writing journey, keep this stuff in mind. It helps you
Very
sell
true.
books.
Yes. Good resources. It's good to have resources that people tactile, things you can touch too. So yes. Well, speaking of traditional, who's started out as traditional publishing or has traditional? Okay, Terri and Pam. All right. So I guess we'll start with Terri. That's okay. Are there any advantages that you prefer with traditional publishing?
Traditional, especially the house that, while it was a relatively smaller house, it did have a marketing infrastructure
At that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and very much a niche market, but it was for the Messianic world. So, my book is still in catalog for them. Now, ironic thing is most of my sales were to Christian women, but but it still sells because they have things in place to be able to manage that. So that was a wonderful thing. I was very blessed to have that. And that was like, I submitted a proposal. They accepted it within a few weeks and then told me 60 days later that I had to have the rough draft. So,
So things move rather quickly, would you say, with traditional?
No, normally no.
Oh.
Normally no, but they knew that they had a market for it. So so they said, can you do it in 60 days? And I was working full time at the time, and I thought, okay, I'll try. And God did a miracle. I was able to do the first draft, having only written six devotionals for the
Book.
For the proposal. So all the rest
they saw. So then they saw what you had provided, and they're like, "Oh yeah,
yeah." And I had an outline.
We'll wait. Yeah,
I had an outline, so I knew where everything was going to go. So,
do you think you would have been able to do that with a different kind of publishing company, or no? Interesting.
No, I don't think so.
Pam, same question for you. What were there any advantages with traditional publishing rather than
Back when I first got published, it was all the advantage to be traditionally
Traditional.
published. There, the two Beatrice books came out about a month before 9/11, so August of 2001. And we had nothing like social media or anything at all to be able to sell books. So all the selling was on the publishing house. So Concordia had their books that they sent out to churches and Christian schools, and they were known more for like Sunday school curriculum and things like that. And a month before 9/11, and everything shut down. The mail shut down, everything shut down. And in spite of all of that, when the books went out of print, because that was the days of big print runs, so there was 10,000 of each book printed. And when I got my rights back, I forget how many years later it was on that, we had sold almost half the print run of both. And that's with no social media, nothing. Editors changed. And so they changed what they were putting out, and then they changed their minds again because it wasn't working for them. And I've tried a couple of times to get them to pick up any more Beatrice books, because they had hired Kim and I together. And so there was an author fee and she got her artist fee. If they'd gone into reprints, they would have then done royalties. If 9/11 had never happened, would it have gone into reprints? We don't know, because it didn't, but and anything that was self-published back then wasn't really that good. And there's the stigma with it, right, Terri, that if you self-published, then you just weren't that good. You had no choice but to pay for it and do it yourself. It is not that way anymore.
Yeah,
There's
like
so
traditional, like traditional wouldn't pick you up, so you had to go.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that when I first started, that was all the advantages were there, especially since it was a decent advance, and now when you get advances, sometimes you get $25, it's different. It is different today, which is why we have to do what? Go to writers' conferences and learn about them, right? We have to learn everything that we can, whether we want to try traditional or if we want to do it ourselves. We still have to learn.
Absolutely. Debbi, did you want to add something?
Yeah, the advantage when I first got published around 2011, small publishers were really big then. And the advantage that I had was I didn't have to pay for anything. And that has been such a blessing to me. And fortunately, my publisher was a graphic artist, so he did the covers and he did a fantastic job with the covers. And I did get my own editor after a while. When he first started, he had an editor, and then he didn't have an editor anymore, so I had to get my own editor, and I used the one that had worked for him. So I've been using her for many, many years. But like I said, this is such a transition for me now, waiting to see what's going to happen with this newest book, and how much money I might have to invest into it. And so it's going to be interesting. But I wanted to tell the story about a friend of mine, and Terri knows her, but this was years ago when everybody wanted to be traditionally published. And that was her heart's dream, was to be published by Love Inspired. And she had an agent, and the agent had kept the book for probably a year. And finally they got a reply from the publishing house, and they told her it was not publishable. The book was not publishable. So it crushed her. But several of her friends encouraged her to self-publish, which she did. And that book has now sold over 200,000 copies. And they begged her to come back, and she didn't, because she was getting all the profits. Why should she go back and share the profits?
Exactly.
you know. So I just love stories like that. You know,
Mhm.
it's just don't ever give up. You know, those rejections, everybody gets them. It's just part of the game. And
Mhm.
so, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like they treat or used to treat traditional publishing like a rite of passage. Like you had to work and toil and, you know, all kinds of hoops and, you know,
People who have been in
sacrifices.
tradition, people who big names who have been in traditional publishing for years are now self-publishing. They want to be able to enjoy that freedom of
More
self-publishing,
control.
and there's the stigma's not there anymore. You know,
Yeah.
so it's really big.
Yeah, you know, like James Scott Bell. I mean, he was a big legal thriller, you know, upper tier author, and now most of his new books are all self-published. So,
Well, I
yeah,
mean, once you've made a name for yourself and people know you and they know how, especially with websites now, they can know everything that's going on with you. And yeah.
in social media.
Yeah, it's social media, and it's social media really helps out a lot as well because you feel a more personal connection with someone that you follow on social media. Yeah, that's but once you've established yourself in the or as an author, I feel like it's a lot easier to self-publish or not traditional publishing because you've already got that momentum or that yeah.
Your platform.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Dennis, we're going to come back around to you. What's been the biggest surprise for you in your writing journey? Was it challenging or rewarding? And just anything you want to share.
Well, I just say the exciting thing again was working with kids. And I think the challenging thing is that I have a push and pull in my household because my wife had brain surgery back in 2019, and I want to be able to take care of her and encourage her, and at the same time, I want to sit down and write, and to be able to balance those. I recently was working with a lady, and she asked me to speak on the idea of caregiving and self-care while building a ministry, and thinking of my writing as a ministry as an underlying idea, but also the idea of making sure that you do take care of yourself. And I think for all writers, we want to make sure that we're affirming ourselves and we're taking time for breaks and whatever. And fortunately, we have some caregiving help, but all of that to say that I really have been able to balance. And to say about my wife, I dedicate my books to her. She was my editor for years. She taught AP English, and she was a professor of speech also. And I've read books to her now out loud, and she'll say, "That doesn't sound right." And she'll catch that. And even she'll listen to Jeopardy and she'll get an answer right on Shakespeare. So I'm really blessed to know that Diane has that kind of impact on my life, and it has on my writing too.
That's great. Pam, yes.
lot of authors are caregivers in some way. My daughter's 32. She functions at a low 18 months. She has seizures every day. We don't make hospital runs like we used to, but and so yeah, and I've written in the emergency room, I've written in her hospital room, I've written in the surgery waiting room. But the self-care I wish I had learned years and years ago. Because we can't, as writers or anything that we do, really, we can't do it to the best of our ability and really to honor God if we are not taking care of ourselves. It is not a selfish thing to take care of yourself, your mind, your body, your soul. It's not a selfish thing. And I think it's a lie from the pit of hell that the devil tells us that don't go get that massage. Don't lay down and take that nap. Don't read a book for fun. It's a waste of time. It's selfish. You're self-centered. You need to be going and doing and working for God and making him. It's a lie. It's a lie, because when you're flat out exhausted, you cannot do anything well. When my daughter was having just overnight 15 to 20 seizures, just overnight, not counting what she had during the day, I was running into the walls. I couldn't, it was awful. And so nobody said to me, even when she was a newborn and she was sick and she was crying and in and out of the doctors, and nobody said, Pam, stay home.
Yeah, get some
A
rest.
sick baby, take care of her. The worst offenders was the church. Did not want me to stop all the work that I was doing in the church for the church, for the kids, for Sunday school, for choir, all of that. And I didn't know any better. So this is a biggie, y'all. Take care of your body, your mind, your spirit. Take care of your hands. Take care of your eyes. You cannot do this job well if you don't.
True. Very true. Debbi, yes.
To piggyback on the caregiving, I also have a daughter. She will be 46 in December, and she functions on a 6-year level. So she lives in a group home now, but I took care of her 24/7 until she was 38 years old. And the interesting thing, though, is that I had gone through a really hard divorce, and I was moved in with my dad, who at that time was in his 80s, and I was taking care of him and Nikki too, and they both required 24-hour care. But I still wrote 2 manuscripts while I was taking care of them. And I would write for like 15 minutes, and Dad would call me from one end of the house, and I'd go see what he wanted. I'd come back and write 15 more minutes, and Nikki'd call me wanting to go to the bathroom or something. And how I did it, I don't know, but I did it. That passion was there. And I did have to put the manuscripts up for several years because it just got too much. But during that time, it was like therapy, and I was able to write those 2 manuscripts. So there again, don't let things, necessarily stand in your way. Even, and like I said, I had to wait many years between those manuscripts. And when I was able to get them back out and work on them again. But, I had that dream and I didn't give up on it. And so, yes, you can do things even, you can follow that dream even if you have things going on in your life. So don't just say, well, I can't do it because
Right.
of such.
Totally
Very
agree.
true.
We're creative people, right? We can
Yeah.
figure out how to do it, and I got it done, but I still wish I had learned to take better care of myself. I don't know if I would have gotten more written or not. I don't know. No, right now I'm almost 65 and I wish I'd be better care of myself, because I think I would feel better now, even though I feel good now because I am taking better care of myself. We have what God has given us, right? God gave me Anna, and how many people have said to me, oh, God would never, he would never have created Anna like that. Like, what? Did she get past him? Whoop, there goes Anna. Oh man, she got past me. Now she's gonna, be mentally retarded and have seizures and blood disorder and everything that she deals with. We have what God gave us, and he gave us a creative brain too, and cats.
And cats.
So I agree. We can and should not give up our dreams. You want to write and your life is hard. It can be an escape. It's good, but you can figure out a way to do it, because we all did, right? All of us, we all did it.
I'll add a little note here. I found an advantage. I might take notes at all different times. I'll put them together. And then what I do is I go ahead and open my phone and I send an email to myself. And I can actually hit the record button. I can record all kinds of notes that have been accumulated in the off times that I happen to have some free time. And then it's all set and ready to go. I send it to myself and I can go back and put it into Word and cover a lot of material very quickly and have it dictated in a poor man's dictation system.
But
That's
still,
great.
that works. And because as writers, we are all the time writing in our heads, right? All the time. I'm sitting here right now on this panel thinking about a story I'm working on in one part of my brain. So yes, there's lots of ways, that we can get it done. I write on, I've written on everything. I've even written on my hand when there wasn't anything. So I always make sure I have a notebook now. But yeah, I
And
love
it's
that.
great.
To email yourself, I've done that too.
And I that's what brought to mind as well, is that you can record things now very easily with the technology that we have. So yeah. Terri, would you tell us any challenging or rewarding things about your writing journey?
I've always written. I started writing stories before I really had much of a vocabulary, and it was my way of processing things. And I think one of the biggest blessings that for me has been that I have learned so much, and I've learned a lot about myself. And there's a saying that nothing bad happens to authors; it's just fodder for another book. So, the challenges that I went through as a child, the challenges that, just living life, presents to us, writing is a way for us to process that. And I've learned so much. And I mean, all of us have felt that moment where you connect with God, because God is our creator. So when he connects with us at that creative level, it's like flying. It's like, where is this coming from? It's because it's like, when I tell people that my characters talk to me, if they're not writers, they kind of, step back a couple feet. But yeah, it's a miraculous, wonderful thing, and it's an honor and a privilege to be able to write.
Anything anyone else wants to add? Sure, Debbie.
I just wanted to say what a gracious gentleman Dennis has been. He's been surrounded by these women who cannot shut up, and he's just been so patient, and I just really appreciate that, Dennis.
I have noticed. Thank you,
God bless
Dennis.
you, ladies. Everybody's doing a great job. I think I'll just add about something that I would want to go ahead and contribute, and that is be obedient. I went to one of my first writers' conferences, and there was a lady who spoke, and she said 20 years earlier, she had actually gotten an advance, got back a lot of the books when it was discontinued, and she ended up getting the rights. 20 years later, she ended up getting the book published again, and she ended up having it sell 100,000 books. So obedience is key here. Just keep on going. If you're listening to this and you want to write, listen to the Lord.
Great. Wow. We've had some really great insights, but let's wrap it up. Authors, in a few words, please share any advice to those starting or considering starting their own writing journey. And Terri, I'll start with you.
I think we've all kind of contributed a lot of advice. Everybody's journey is different. And being able to be sensitive to what the Holy Spirit might be telling you. Yet, having said that, to make sure that, well, let me put it this way. The Levites, when they worked in the tabernacle and when they worked in the temple, even though they were called to that, I mean, it was in their bloodline, they were called to do that, they still had to be the best at what they did. If it was to butcher the cattle, they had to be incredible about that because it could mean their life. Those who were singers, they all learned how to be the best at singing or instruments or anything else. So one of the ways that I know someone is an inexperienced writer is when they say, God gave me this book and therefore nobody needs to edit it because they'd be editing God's words. It's a lie. It's hubris is what it is. And it is always about us learning on the journey and being the best that God has called us to be. And yeah.
That's awesome. Dennis, you want to give us anything you got? The last.
Yes, and I'll say that I said in the conversation a little while ago about having this salvation conversation with the next generation. And when I came up with that concept, I was realizing that, wow, books that are written by believers and followers of Jesus have a different impact. And so some people have an aversion to marketing their books or trying to share about them. Open the doors and just go ahead and share, because God can use your writing to touch somebody's heart, and maybe an encouragement, maybe a challenge for them. And it also may be just opening an opportunity for a young child to smile and think about Jesus better.
That's great. Debbi, we'll go on to you next. Do you have any advice?
I just try to be an encourager. And I hope if anybody feels like they are called to write or have that passion to write, please follow it. And if you don't feel comfortable in what you're doing, try some of these little things like going to conferences and going to get into writers group. My first thing was ACFW online. And that's where they have classes that are free. And I think it was like $40 or $45 a year. And they had free classes and they had other people that you could connect with. So, don't give up on that dream. Just do it.
Yeah, that's a great point, is finding forums or Discord groups or Facebook groups like that as well. Yeah. Pam, do you want to?
Yeah. Don't despise the small things. A lot of people get into their writing journey and they want to write that big best-selling novel. It happens kind of rarely, but it has happened for people. But mostly, don't look down on or hesitate from doing small things. I did get my two first things picked up were picture books. It wasn't a fluke, but it was, if you know what I mean, because then I went years and years without anybody picking up any of my other books. But I sold daily devotions. I sold magazine articles. I contributed to things. Even now that I have a novel published, and the publisher, she wants the prequel, and I'm working on it. And I'm a picture book writer at heart, so it takes me a long time to write. a novel. I have discovered short stories and I write them, submit them. They don't get paid anything for it, but it keeps you going. Don't despise the small stuff, right? Don't think all I can do is a book. That's what gives me validation is a book, because I've told a lot of my editing clients, look at children's magazines. If you want to share a story, you want to get it out to as many kids as humanly possible, magazine's the way to go. Because books, typically you don't sell that many, but a magazine article can hit 1 million kids. And then if you're trying to sell a book and you're having a hard time writing it and you really want to rip your hair out and put your head through the wall, maybe you shouldn't be writing that book. Try blogging. There's a lot of things you can do to keep writing while you're working toward a dream. If you have that dream of a bigger book, a novel, a series, whatever it is, don't look down on the small stuff. It keeps you going.
That is great advice. That is wonderful. All right. Anything else anyone wants to add to?
But thank you so much. This has
Oh, thank
been
y'all. This has been
such a
fantastic.
blessing.
Really good. Thanks for having us.
Hey, viewers. Our panelists have provided some items for giveaway just for you. If you subscribe, like, comment, or share, you'll be entered in for a chance to win. We've got Pam, who will be giving us one of her Willoughby books she's going to choose, along with her new coloring book. It's for kids and adults, including a pack of crayons. Debbi is providing a couple of books also for giveaway to be determined. Dennis has generously offered an autographed hardback copy of 2 of his books in the critically acclaimed In God We Trust series, book 1 and book 2. And then Terri has offered either a paperback or Kindle, your choice, version of the first book in her Hair Mavens trilogy, the award-winning She Does Good Hair. Once again, a huge thanks to all our authors, Pam, Dennis, Deb, and Terri, for sharing with us their experience and knowledge. We truly appreciate their insights and wisdom. And viewers, we hope this has been helpful to you as well. Let us know in the comments section. Tell us, maybe you have some tips as well that you can share with us. Who knows?
Thank you so much, viewers, for joining us. And I'll tell you what, I learned so much during this episode and with this panel. And plus, it was just really good seeing some friends that I haven't seen in a long time. Now, we have another episode with another panel that includes Melanie Brown and my co-author, Cynthia L. Simmons. And that will actually air November 22nd. So stay tuned for that. So there'll be even more information. And one of the things that I've learned is it doesn't matter if it's the exact same question. When you have different people, you get all new insights and helpful information. So I am looking forward to that.
And we'll have more giveaways as well.
Oh, yes, more giveaways. So, yes. So until we meet again, thank you so much. Thank you to Rivy for being an incredible moderator. And I'm not prejudiced that she's my daughter because she is so talented. But anyway, until we meet again, God bless and keep reading.